Story 1. You drop something on the floor and consider if you really need it enough to bend down that far. Story 2. Getting up to urinate 3 to 4 times a night. Taking a nap in the afternoon and still able to sleep at night except to urinate. Story 3. That the characters in shows, movies, and books are all younger than you. Story 4. When you stop caring what people think of you. The great mythical expression, "no concerns to give," is awesome. Story 5. You groan when you get up from the chair or sofa. You groan when you have to walk upstairs. You probably groan when you have to reach into a high cabinet for something. Story 6. Being excited when you buy a new toaster or vacuum cleaner. Story 7. Hearing some of the bands you enjoyed as a teenager being played in the grocery store like soft background music instead of the exciting experience you once thought it was. Story 8. You need 7 days to recover after one good drinking weekend. Story 9. I have less tolerance than ever and less filter. I am just sick and tired of other people's nonsense. Story 10. You do reach a point where dying of natural causes becomes possible. There is a line that trails behind us in age, representing people we can reasonably be attracted to. It is natural for this line to move upward as we age. However, the line above, representing older people we can reasonably be attracted to, will probably stall at some point, likely around when a person reaches old age. Eventually, as one approaches old age oneself, those two lines converge and meet. Then you cannot be attracted to anyone you would consider, nor can you consider anyone you are attracted to. Also, there is the loss of relevance. I do not know why, but what Grandpa Simpson said is eerily true. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I am with is not it, and what is it seems weird and scary to me, and it will happen to you too. I am watching the idols of my youth lose their relevance as well. People like the rock stars of old or actors whom people no longer remember. I found out recently that wearing a long undershirt underneath a t-shirt is a 20-year-old fashion. You get really tired too. At some point, you never stop being tired until you die. One assumes the tiredness stops then, one way or another. Story 11. You start meeting adults who were born in a year when you were already an adult. Story 12. The inside of my ear is itching. Apparently, it is a sign of perimenopause at age 39, so that is a new thing no one ever told me about. Story 13. You start looking backward instead of forward. Story 14. General weakness, especially in my shoulders and hips. I walk every day to maintain what strength I have for as long as possible. I also experience loneliness. Story 15. Just a number. I am in better shape now than I have ever been. I work at it. I work out every day. Story 16. You go to the grocery store and catch yourself saying, "Wow, I can remember when that was $3. Story 17. Had to start using reading glasses recently, and that was a bit of an "I'm old" moment. Story 18. I vividly remember when the second airplane hit the South Tower. There are people alive today who can vote, drink legally, and enlist in the military who were not even born on that day. Story 19. When you do not know and you do not like most of the new music. Story 20. I have always led an active life. My principal activity nowadays is cycling, and even just a few years ago I could go out for a ride almost every day, weather permitting. However, I now find that I need a day to recover after a 40-mile ride. I am 78 years old, by the way. Story 21. I am a 77-year-old female, turning 78 in January. Although I remain physically active, walking half a mile daily and maintaining a semi-attractive appearance, my short-term memory is fading. Learning new things and remembering them is becoming difficult. This is my main symptom of aging. It is scary to have so little control over the brain's normal aging process, even after many healthy interventions. Time marches on regardless. Story 22. As a woman, it was when men stopped being polite and helpful. I did not realize how much my physical appearance affected the way I was treated by strangers. The world was much friendlier before I turned 40. Story 23. How far one has to scroll back on the date of birth icon when filling out a form. Story 24. When are you thankful that nobody asks you to go out? Story 25. Menopause told me I do get old. The dark spots on my face, my joints hurting. I am stiff when I wake up, and not as resistant during exercise. But it is fine, I am happy to age. It is a privilege to do so. Story 26. Forgetting small things like brain fog. I can read something and forget it immediately. Story 27. No one relates to your analogies from movies or television series. Story 28. The television, movie stars, and musicians you grew up with are dying or dead. Story 29. Looking forward to having a cup of tea and a snack in bed while watching television on a Saturday night. Story 30. The number of people under 40 complaining about being old is funny. You either need an active lifestyle or an exercise regimen. I have 4 hunting dogs to keep up with, and I also compete with them. 10 years ago, at 55, I could walk 4 30-minute stakes in a weekend and felt fine on Monday. I still do it at 65, but I am a little slower getting moving on Monday, mostly because of my knees and ankles. Good muscle mass does not compensate for bone and joint deterioration. I am going to tell you right now, getting old is not for the faint of heart. Story 31. There is no significant difference in your mind between someone in their 20s and someone in their 30s. Story 32. You start watching your feet when you come down the stairs. Story 33. The main sign for me is the proportion of people you meet who are younger than you. If most of the people you see daily are younger, then you are officially old. Story 34. You need those reading glasses. This condition really sneaks up on you. Story 35. You are wearing glasses and reading about aging on Reddit, which your sons encouraged you to access on your phone. Story 36. I saw an antiques fair over the weekend for the first time in my life. I seriously considered checking it out. Story 37. 55 is starting to look bad. I just got a pair of glasses, and oh my goodness, I have never noticed the large creases on my face. Story 38. Rather than being envious of those with high-status, high-stress careers, you start to feel sorry for them. Story 39. When I read something and have to check the Urban Dictionary for the definition. Story 40. Physical changes like feeling more tired after activities that were previously easy or experiencing aches and pains more frequently are signs that you may be getting older. Your priorities may also change, shifting from stability to comfort and health. You might find yourself reminiscing about the good old days or realizing that popular culture and trends no longer resonate with you as much. You may prefer peace and quiet over excitement and noise, especially when it comes to technology, which can begin to feel more complicated. Another sign is that you value routines and time with loved ones more than ever before. Story 41. When you decide you are not taking disrespect from anybody and you remember that life in prison is not that long for you. Story 42. I have always loved to eat, but now at 30, I cannot eat like I did in my early 20s without a stomach ache or becoming completely bloated. Story 43. I bought a new bed, and I now do not wake up with any back pain. When I was younger, I could sleep anywhere in any position. Story 44. Suddenly being able to take a random nap in the middle of the day. Story 45. While standing in the shower, you do not remember if you washed your hair. Story 46. My hands are starting to look old. I saw my hands in a picture the other day and thought they were my mom's. Story 47. Becoming less tolerant of people. Body aches and pains. Gradually becoming more judgmental. Wanting to be at home instead of out. Preferring quiet. Talking about birds or the weather. Story 48. I accidentally sat on my testicles because they were slightly lower than usual. Story 49. You are having a harder time getting used to newer words. Generation Z, millennials, baby boomers, and others are good examples. Story 50. Going clothes shopping and quickly realizing that you are no longer the target demographic. Story 51. A man holding a fire extinguisher while lighting the candles on the cake. Story 52. Having to push the last bit of urine out and not being able to start urinating right away. Story 53. You cannot do a somersault. If you are over 36, do not try it. You will feel every vertebra in your back. Story 54. You wake up more tired than when you went to sleep. Your knees pop constantly, Your back is always stiff. You do not enjoy parties like you used to. You do not like driving at night. Story 55. When you stand resting your hands on your hips just like your parents did. Story 56. Squatting down and fearing both knees will explode unless I use my hands and arms to help stand back up. Story 57. When you see someone younger doing something you once did and warn them of the consequences, but they ignore you. Story 58. Feeling secretly happy when friends cancel plans because you love them but feel like being lazy. Story 59. You are discovering that many celebrities are actually younger than you. Your peers are beginning to get married or become pregnant. I am currently a Generation Z individual experiencing an existential crisis as both events are happening simultaneously. Story 60. Forgetting why you came into a room. Wait, what was the question? Story 61. Zenial here. I remember watching Sharknado, and Tara Reid's character said, "I have to go get my daughter from the other room." I thought, oh, that's cool, they have infants in Sharknado. Okay. It wouldn't have been my choice, but that's cool. Then the daughter walks in college-aged. That was a sign. Story 62. The only thing I have noticed is my eyesight gradually getting worse. Story 63. You consider any walking you do to count as exercise for the day. Story 64. Being offered a seat on a crowded bus by a young woman. That was my, oh, I am the old person now moment. Story 65. Last year, we attended more funerals than weddings. That was sobering. Story 66. You receive the senior citizen discount automatically when you shop, without needing to request it. Story 67. My back always hurts. If I don't stretch and do my physical therapy, I'll throw my lower back out. Thinking anyone under 30 looks like a child. Not caring so much about how I look and feeling the comfort of being more of a homebody. Story 68. I am currently wearing a transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation unit on my lower back while eating lunch. Story 69. 10 p.m. in your 30s is late. Like tomorrow is going to be a long day late. 10 p.m. when I was 21 was when you arrived at the club. Then you went to bed at 4 a.m., woke up at 9 a.m., partied until Sunday sometime, and worked a full day on Monday with no hangover. I would die if I had to pull an all-nighter now. Story 70. Nose hair, ear hair, hair everywhere that it should not be, and none where there should be. Story 71. When all you look forward to is good sleep and a good bowel movement. Story 72. You wake up at 5 a.m. on Sunday feeling horrible. Your head is pounding, you are nauseous, and your whole body feels terrible. You have cotton mouth so bad your lips stick together. You stagger to the bathroom for a noisy bowel movement and then slurp as much water as you can from the sink faucet. You take 2 ibuprofen tablets, drink more water, then stagger back to bed. What did I do last night? You mumble. It hurts to think, but your mind takes you back to the events of the previous Saturday. Scenes from the evening flash before your eyes. You met up with some friends. You helped one of them install a ceiling fan. You watched the first half of a football game, then went home. You made a big salad for dinner with lots of fresh vegetables and some leftover rotisserie chicken. You washed it down with a big glass of tap water. You watched a few episodes of What We Do in the Shadows and went to bed around 10:30. And you woke up feeling like you did a 14-hour bar crawl. That is a sign that you are getting old. Oh boy, is it ever. Story 73. 2 weeks ago, I was driving home after picking up some dinner for the family. Everything was fine when I left the restaurant. At some point on the way home, I started to feel the urge to have a bowel movement. By the time I arrived home, less than 2 miles away, it became an emergency situation. My plan was to park, run inside to use the bathroom, and then come back for the food. The instant I got out of the car and stood up, time seemed to slow down. I knew I was not going to make it, and there was nothing I could do about it. I, an adult man, had an accident standing next to my car. It was not a small amount. I completely soiled myself. A fully formed stool exited and fell onto the ground after escaping my shorts. It splattered on the ground in full view. I froze and stared at it for a moment. I knew I had entered a new phase of my life. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. and I was absolutely terrified that this was now possible. I duck walked inside and took a quick shower after washing the mess out of my clothes. Then, I went outside and rinsed off the driveway with buckets of water. Took 3 buckets to clean it. So, I guess that's how I know I am getting older. Read the story, young people, and consider your future. Story 74. Not recognizing a single song on the top 10 current hits list. Story 75. You judge food by the amount of heartburn you are willing to endure. Story 76. Your accumulated and earned knowledge begins to be challenged and revised by newer science. Story 77. When the barber asks if you want your eyebrows trimmed. Story 78. Bedtime becomes the time you start getting ready to go out. Story 79. Accepting yourself and others, not needing to change things, taking things less personally, and also feeling a little sidelined but not caring too much. Story 80. Cannot exercise without properly warming up. Otherwise, aches and pains will last for days. Story 81. Body fatigue, insufficient sleep, stress, hair loss, erectile dysfunction. Story 82. Well, start to stand at the urinal long enough to think, damn, this is taking a long time. I have better things to do. Story 83. Mid-30s and my knees are starting to hurt. I work out and I'm honestly in the best shape since I was 20. But I could never relate to my knees hurting until now. I have to power through. Story 84. I knew I was old when I had to search the internet for the slang my younger cousins were using and still did not understand it. Story 85. You have to do some mathematics when deciding whether to get a new cat or dog. Story 86. I cannot drink hard alcohol anymore, which is good. However, even if I have a couple of beers or a glass of wine, I need to keep antacid tablets by my bed because I know it will cause discomfort. Story 87. Significant back pain. I am approaching my 40s and feel exhausted. I was reasonably active, not overweight, and am still struggling. To anyone of any age who reads this, take care of yourself and exercise regularly. Story 88. Sometimes I am walking, and I get knee or ankle pain that I am sure will require surgery and bed rest. Then, 10 feet later, I feel fine. Story 89. When I saw a newly finished luxury driveway, I felt the need to post a picture of it on social media with the caption, "What a stunning driveway. Oh no, am I old because I like driveways now? Turns out that being in your 40s is old." Story 90. When you fall, people are concerned that you might have hurt yourself instead of laughing about it. Story 91. You have to accept that physical discomfort of one kind or another can become borderline chronic, especially if you do not take care of yourself in your youth. Story 92. You buy the nicest, most comfortable, and most expensive mattress you can find, yet still wake up with a sore back every morning. Story 93. You start realizing you have no idea what children are talking about anymore. The new words they are inventing for slang make no sense to you and will not stick in your head. And you also do not care. Story 94. My neck hurts. I didn't do anything and my neck aches. Story 95. For me, it was when I was in my mid to upper 30s during a trip to Six Flags amusement park. Growing up, I used to love the thrill of roller coasters, and I hadn't been on one in ages. I was all hyped up and ready to go. But 10 seconds in, I started getting the feeling I wasn't going to enjoy it. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life. Story 96. I'm only 25 but can't stand any music coming out now. I think it was different when it was parents in the 1970s to 2000s, where it was just a different style. I do not know, music is probably the worst it has been in 100 years right now. Story 97. When you enjoy the past more than the present or the future. Story 98. Reminiscing about how the cost of basically everything was cheaper a few years ago and then realizing you were thinking of 15 years ago, not the 4 years prior. Story 99. When I stopped playing with Tonka trucks, the desire to even look at them vanished. Story 100. When you hear your Spotify playlist playing at the grocery store. Story 101. During social gatherings, you are the oldest person in the group. Story 102. What used to be a punishment is now a reward. Take sleep, for instance. Story 103. When you stand up, it sounds like a box of Rice Krispies. The new music is not good. They play the old music at the grocery store. You complain that people drive too fast. But unless someone is supporting you, you do not care. Story 104. When you need to start trimming your eyebrows or ears. Story 105. I cannot watch a full anime season at once. I like the taste of beer. I like sour candy. I dislike young children. Story 106. Taking many supplements to address issues such as acid reflux, inflammation, and bone health. Also wanting to live in comfortable, stretchy clothes. Story 107. I think I have reached a point where there are more celebrities I am unfamiliar with than ones I know. I saw a headline the other day that said, Willa Carmichael says Jenna Blevins lied about an affair with Johnny Rowe. I thought, I have no idea who any of these people are. This is happening with rapidly increasing frequency. Story 108. Instead of a right and left knee, you have a good knee and a bad knee. Story 109. When your favorite professional athletes who are your age have all retired. Story 110. Parties that do not start until 9 p.m. or later are immediately a no. Story 111. My hip hurts badly all the time. It is hard to sleep, and it is hard to walk after sitting. I cannot cross my legs, and I cannot sit with one leg under my butt like I always have. It is a very strange feeling to not be able to do something because of pain. I am 33 years old. I did not think this would be a problem already. Story 112. Being a little sore and a little tired, a little longer and a little earlier than you are used to. Story 113. You get mad when unfamiliar cars park in front of your house. Story 114. Not being able to eat unhealthy food for multiple days in a row or eat a large amount of junk food at once. Story 115. The police officers, bank tellers, and almost every profession look very young. Story 116. One night of staying up a little late has exponential effects on fatigue the next morning. Story 117. When you have no filter, you just say what comes to the top of your mind. Also, when you do not feel any shame in casually opening the door in your underwear to stand on your porch. Story 118. People no longer understand your movie and film references or quotes. Story 119. Going to bed at 8:30 p.m. and avoiding dinners that start past 6 p.m. Story 120. Songs I listened to in middle school are on classic rock radio. Story 121. You realize your best years are behind you and the future looks bleak. Story 122. When you no longer recognize your reflection in the mirror. Story 123. Every day I have a new ache in my body, and I do not know what my body is telling me. Story 124. If you trip and fall down, your friends do not laugh, but check if you broke something. Story 125. Going on a roller coaster and feeling exhausted afterward. Story 126. Not understanding the new generation's language. What does Ohio mean? Story 127. Imminent relieved bake aromatic steer treatment repeat dime plucky bright. Story 128. When the things that used to dominate your daily life are no longer used or remembered. Story 129. They say people stop searching for new music after age 27 or 28. I think it is true. Story 130. Well, for starters, that nursing home sign in front of my building. Story 131. You start experiencing random pains in your back and neck that last for weeks and begin without any apparent reason. You could be picking up a book off the floor and end up injuring your back. Story 132. When I say, yeah, I used to do that, or I've been to that city, and realize it is not even in this decade anymore, it was at least 15 years ago. Story 133. Celebrities you watched as a kid popping up on screen looking like they belong on Tales from the Crypt. Story 134. Back pain, shoulder pain, not knowing the words that younger people use. Story 135. The oldies station is full of my music now, and I am getting up during the night to use the bathroom more than once. Story 136. Knowing that you will get up at least once or twice to urinate in the middle of the night. Story 137. When you are out and about and catch your reflection in a window or mirror and see your mother. Story 138. Introversion becomes more pronounced as you get older. Certain social situations seem too difficult. Story 139, you get cheated on and he leaves you for a younger version of yourself. Story 140, the dog you received as a puppy for your 18th birthday is now 17 years old. Story 141, mentally obvious changes include starting to retreat to your own space and preferring calm over stress. You begin thinking about how to be more successful and responsible. Start to think bigger and broader than personal interests. Growing up is never bad as long as we hold on to the inner child and embrace it. Otherwise, we risk getting lost. Story 142. When I heard K-Earth 101 play Holiday by Madonna about 10 years ago, I knew it was over. Story 143. Needing reading glasses to see the small print on your blood pressure medication. Story 144. My father always said, if you wake up after 40 and don't feel pain, you are not alive. I always smiled about it until I was in my 40s. Story 145. I coach baseball and have for years. I went to jog a lap with my players as I do every practice and pulled a groin muscle. It had literally never happened until 2 days ago. It made me feel so old. Story 146. I need to exercise regularly or I will suffer aches and pains. Story 147. The things you want to throw away start talking to you. Wait, I have potential. Story 148. I would say the shift from concerns about self to concerns about children is a significant one. Story 149. Physical activity that used to be recoverable with a single night's sleep now takes several days or even a week to recover. Pain occurs for no apparent reason. There are random injuries with no clear underlying cause, such as tendinitis in both elbows and arthritis in one big toe. I experienced posterior vitreous detachment earlier than most. I am a 53-year-old male and consider myself fortunate. I run on the treadmill at a pace slower than 7 minutes and 30 seconds per mile for up to 10 kilometers. Yesterday, I completed a 5-kilometer run at a 7:06 pace. I lift weights using a cable machine 5 days a week and have gained 10 to 15 pounds of upper body muscle. I did experience a minor tear in my right shoulder, but it has always healed well. Story 150. Wondering when my own Alzheimer's disease or dementia will start affecting me. I am 59. I placed my parents, who are in their mid-80s, into memory care a year ago, so I know it is most likely approaching for me. I have started planning for the future, considering what I should get rid of now to lessen the burden of mental decline later on. Downsize, sell possessions, eliminate unnecessary items, and possibly move into a community with attached care. My parents struggled greatly with the transition because the disease robs them of self-awareness. They believe nothing is wrong, and their children have to persuade them to take long car rides while others move some of their furniture to the care home, a small room that could fit into one room of the large house they lived in for over 40 years. I fear lacking self-awareness before it is too late, and I have no children to do what I did for my parents. Story 151. You stop listening to newer music and do not recognize that new musicians are performing on shows and events, and surprisingly, you stop caring about who they are. You also find yourself seeing college students and thinking, they keep looking younger every year. Story 152. I ruined my own and my friend's day a while ago by suddenly saying, we were born closer to the end of World War II than to the present day. Story 153. All the advice posts on Reddit are just so stupid. You are perplexed that people seemingly refuse to advocate for themselves. Story 154. For me, it was, your peers are having children and your response has gone from children? We are barely done being children ourselves. To children? Yes, actually, that does sound about right. Story 155. That just happened the other day turns into 20 years ago. Story 156. Your vision deteriorates, and you need bifocal glasses. You trip every time you take a step. Story 157. I am female. I have noticed a strange increase in sex drive compared to a decrease. Story 158. Your age is a good indicator. If not, there is a simple test. Do you have a special stick or wooden spoon to stir paint with? Story 159. When the candles on your birthday cake set off the sprinklers. Story 160. I cannot read a menu without my phone light, and I cannot read the receipt afterward. By the way, Why are restaurants not using handheld tap to pay? The backlit displays solve that. Story 161. When you see videos that say you had a good childhood if you had saw or did XYZ, or some other form of nostalgia bait that compares you to the current generation. Moreover, when you do not understand the newer modern slang or catchphrases and have to look them up in order to understand without context. Story 162. I am currently out of breath running around the house, letting someone on the phone tell me how to fix my internet, and nearly pulling my hair out. Story 163. Your toenails become hard. It suddenly becomes impossible to step into your underwear. Story 164. Discovering that you can see clearly after borrowing someone's reading glasses. Story 165. You feel it in your bones when you have to crouch down to pick up something. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.